welcome to another Power Talk with Ashna. Today we are talking about corporate influencers. We're talking about community building. We're talking about everything that has to do with startups and creating your own brand. I have with me a very dear friend, Dr. Irene. Dr. Irene is a part of my professional network and based in Germany. She's a strategy expert for personal branding and has dedicated herself for helping startups, businesses to leverage the power of community building and create a brand. A corporate influencer herself, she aces the art of community building and is instrumental in bringing together the best of minds from different generations to help build an influential brand and grow communities. Let's welcome our very dear friend of mine, Dr. Irene. Hello, Irene. How are you doing today?
Hello, Ashana. Hello, everyone out there. I'm great. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolute pleasure. We are really delighted to have you on our show, Dr. Irene. Let's start this journey. Since your prime focus has been into corporates, has been into influencing corporates, building their brands and community building, explain to us about your unique strategy of Tamiya being the method in the forefront.
Yes, exactly. I've created a method, it's so-called Tamiya, which has been very popular. I've been using it for several years now in my workshops, and then I wrote an article about it, and I received great feedback from people across there. Some even asking me if they can use it, and then I said yes, but you should still be referencing that it's my method. And in fact, Tamiya stands for acronyms TUMEA. So why do I use the Tamiya method for? I say, like, you can get to your unique brand message within 5 ingenious actions. So we have these 5 acronyms. The first one is T, which is target group, where I say, like, okay, you have to clearly define at the beginning, who is the target group? Who do you want to reach? Whose pain points do you want to solve, and do you want to relieve? And also you can use buyer persona to create your desired customer. And then we have the second one, which is a U, and stands for unique value proposition. You have to be very clear about your strength, your passion, and really define, like, what makes you stand out from your competitors, right? I always say you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. However, you can look at your competitors and then see, like, okay, is there maybe something they're not covering? Is there any solution that they're not providing to your target customers? So it gives you a little indication towards where your niche positioning might be. Then we have M, like metaphors, because they're so important for your storytelling, right? So create images. Why? Because then people can keep your message better in mind and can better relate to it, right? Because people love stories and want to be entertained in a certain way. Then we have E, that stands for emotional selling proposition. Since people buy from people, they need to feel emotionally attached, right? And studies have shown that 90% of the buying decision is made by emotions. Do I trust this brand? Do I believe that they can indeed solve my problems, right? And then we only have 10% that stands for the facts and figures, and which only lead to the last final decision. So we have here a quota of 90 to 10%. And lastly, we have A, that stands for AIDA formula. Maybe some of you out there might know it. It's a method, it's a structure on how to come up with your, so to say, small pitch, how you can present yourself in a very short frame time, which can be 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 90 seconds, right? So how do you get the attention of your audience? How do you evoke their interest? How do you speak up to their desire? And finally, how do you bring them to action? So this is the method of Tamiya. So if you follow all those 5 actions, in fact, you can really create your unique, individual, amazing brand message.
Wow, I think this is really, really amazing. You have touched upon all the valid and very relevant points. The
Mhm.
last one, the pitch that you talked about, I think this is really important. It is important for you to create that influence in the very first 30 or 60 seconds for people
Mhm.
to get so captivated by your pitch that they would want you and want your brand. Amazing. Absolutely perfect. So, Dr. Irene, you have been so much, you have been working with the startups all along, and you have really made a space for yourself. You've really created a name for yourself in that space. Talking of them, funding is a very important part. As you said, pitching is very important for you to get the right investments and right funding. Now, talking
Mm.
from the investor's point of view, what are the things the investors really look for in a startup to be really tempted to invest in that particular startup? What are your
Mhm.
thoughts there?
Ashana, this is funding. It's one of the biggest challenges that a startup faces. So this question occurs so many times, like, so what do I need to do to get funded by investors? How can I attract the right ones and so on? Basically, you know, most of the investors are looking for the same thing, right? So if you have a startup idea, they look for the problem solution fit. Are you really solving a major problem out there for life, for society, for business? So it should be validated, right? You need to conduct a market validation. So the first thing is problem solution fit should be there. And then it depends in which industry you're at. But in fact, if you are, for example, a tech startup, they are looking for scalability. Is your business model scalable, right? Can you expand into many different regions out there? Then, if you can prove to them that your service or your product is novel and it's patentable, right? Then it's a major, major thing, right? So
Yeah.
your business model at the end of the day should be feasible. And what they really, really look at as well is that you have a great team behind. Like, for example, in the US,
Yeah.
you could even find an investor being a solo entrepreneur, whereas in Europe, for example, you should be at least a team of 2 people. You should have at least a co-founder, and they are looking for the right balance of different competencies, right? Because at the end of the day, you can have the greatest product out there, but they also need to believe in you as a team, right? That you are able to go the extra mile and do anything possible to make your startup grow big. So that's what they're looking for, in particular in a startup. But what also really attracts them, if they feel that you have done your research, that you are approaching them as the right investor for their business model. So look out for investors who've been probably in your industry, know your industry very well. And it's also an advice to startups, also find an investor who's not merely the money giver, but also a strategic partner who
Yeah.
has a great network in the field you're operating at, and who might potentially also be your mentor or coach.
Lovely. I think these are really beautiful points you have put across, Dr. Irene. You're very right out there. I think for the startup, it is very important. It's just not about that idea. It's beyond that idea. What kind of team do you have? Do you have your marketing in place? Do you have somebody who understands numbers? Do you have that skill set? Are you a team? Very, very
Mhm.
important. How scalable your business is. Wonderful points out there, Dr. Irene. Amazing. Dr. Reen, as we move forward, I know you have been working a lot in the direction of being a corporate influencer and trying to build a community. So, in your definition, who is a corporate influencer? What are the roles and responsibilities today for a corporate influencer?
Yes. So this expression of corporate influencer is, I guess, it's more popular like in the US, but they also name it brand ambassadors, for example, or employee advocates, right? And corporate influencers are in fact brand ambassadors, but the difference here is that those are not external influencers, rather people who are employed within an organization, which means a business organization or company makes use of its employees to represent the company, both offline and online. Offline might be at conferences, exhibitions, or just to hold a speech at, I don't know, at an event, and online to represent the company via social media channels, right? Creating content online and interacting, engaging with the potential customer base of the organization, as opposed to an
Amazing.
external
Yeah.
influencer that I work with for a certain period of time, who's not at the first place familiar with my company culture, right? So I first need to educate him on this basis. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you over there. You know what? You have been working a lot with communities, and help people build communities, work around these communities. And it is so very important in the kind of world, the VUCA world that we are staying in today, we are in today. It's important to be with the communities and work around and with them. What are your thoughts?
It's so important, both on a private and business level, right? But I will tackle on the business world. As you mentioned, we
Yeah,
live in a VUCA world, and companies are more and more, yes, forced to quickly innovate, to lead their companies
yeah,
towards the digital transformation and so on, right? And also, there are also many other reasons why it might be good for companies to build communities, not only the innovation aspect, also to attract new talents, or also to foster a baseline of loyal customers, right? So in fact, I always say there are two parts. The first part where you really start building the community. So you have to consider many different strategic elements here, right? Starting, okay, how should the community be organized? What kind of roles and activities do I want to implement? What kind of members should be part of my community? For example, when you consider employee community, right? You have to decide on which employees, in fact, should be part of my, for example, corporate influencer community. Is everyone allowed, or do I
yeah,
set certain selection criteria? Then I have to decide, like, okay, what kind of channels do I want to make use of? Are all the channels equally important to me, or do I first focus
yeah,
on two or three different ones? What is our mission? In fact, this is also important. What does our community stand for to attract new members potentially?
yeah,
Then, do I have any key users that I can use as multipliers, right, to create awareness about my community? Then one major part, what do I have to offer to my community? What is the value add I'm offering to my community? May it be content, different activities that we do together. It can be many different events and so on, right? And then we also have
yeah,
the, yes, also the financial part. How do I monetize, for example, my community? How expensive is it
yeah,
to lead, to manage such a community? How do I work with all the data that I receive from the community members and so on? You see, like, there's so many elements to consider at the beginning. So I love working with the community canvas, which is layered down in 3 different topic areas and further broken down into 17 different themes. And I guess I only touched on probably
wow,
1/3 of it, but there's so many much more. So building a community, it's really a strategic thing to consider to do so. And you're never done with building your community, because that's also the question that many pose and ask, like, okay, when will I be done? I said, you will never be done, because it's an ongoing process. It's a
yeah,
marathon, not a sprint. And once you're done with the strategic framework, then you can go the next step further and think of community engagement activities. So we have two major pillars. On the one hand side,
Wow.
community building, on the other hand side, community engagement, right? So how do I keep my
Wow.
community members active, engaged, and so on? There's so many good examples out there of great communities where the community members are really attached to the brand and to the organization. Just to name a few, for example, Amnesty International, right? Those are all volunteers, but
Yeah.
they really strongly believe in the mission and would do anything to bring this mission across. And they also recruit new members. And
Yeah.
then other hand side, we
Wow.
also have like Harley Davidson, right? One of the strongest brand communities and customer communities ever, right? So it's more than just being a community member for them. It's a lifestyle, right? You can even see it through their
Yeah.
appearance that they're part of this community, and they would die for that brand.
Wow. Irene, as you rightly said, engaging the community is as much important as building the community, and that is what gets the ball rolling. If the community is not engaged, even if you build a good one, it really won't serve the purpose. The sense of belongingness comes when we start engaging with the community and within the community. Amazing, absolutely perfect. Dr. Irene, it was a real pleasure to have you with us. As we wind up this conversation, you are a power woman in yourself.
I always
What is
say
it that
like
you would like to add in the end?
I really love people that are pioneers, change makers, visionaries. Like I really recommend if you have a dream, just go for it. And as you know, I have the company Brandpreneurs and Brandfluencers, and what we stand for is like inspire others, influence others, and impact the world. Do it and go for it because you can.
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. It is so very important today to keep empowering one another. And if you have that passion, nothing can really hold you back. Amazing. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Irene, for spending your valuable time with me and my audience. I'm sure they're going to love this interview. Thanks a lot for coming on board. Have a wonderful life ahead.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was Dr. Irene for you. What a wonderful conversation. Everything you wanted to know about what an investor looks for in a startup to invest their fund, their time, and their expertise. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. A very informative and enlightening conversation. I hope you enjoy the coming week. Until then, stay tuned for more.